Thank you. Welcome to UEFN Unleashed, powering your wildest game ideas. I'm Kasper, and this is Aidan, and we're going to take you through a 1-hour presentation here. The first half, I'm going to cover a little bit about my work with the UEFN. I'm a Fortnite creator. I've been in it for 6 years. And then Aidan.
Okay, is it working? Yeah, okay, great. And then I'll be doing a live demo about how to build a popular Battle Royale feature without any coding, and I'll do it all live in UEFN for you guys.
Yeah, awesome. So, a little quick intro here. I'm a Fortnite creator, or used to be. I'm running a Fortnite studio now where all we really do is inside of UEFN. I live here in Copenhagen, born and raised in Næstved, if any of you are from there. But I've been a UGC creator since I was 10, 6 years of Fortnite development experiences, and the last 4 years I've spent building my own studio and working with brands. So, best way to show you some of the work that we've done at Beyond Creative, that is So hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight. Effectively, what we do is that we work with all sorts of brands and entertainment IPs to try and bring them into Fortnite by making experiences, by integrating them into existing ones. And the overall goal with mentioning that is just to show you that Fortnite's a lot more than what you may have remembered it as if you played it from 2018, 2020. It's changed a lot, and some of the notable projects we worked on has been, for instance, bringing Nike together with the Nike Sephora. That's the experience that launched in June 2023. So it's all built with UEFN, and as you can see in the bottom left, we worked with the LEGO group on building a game called LEGO Tycoon Tilted Towers. And we also built Race to Greatness by Ralph Lauren. The really cool thing about all of these experiences is that it's so different in terms of what brands we work with. It's anything from fashion to toys to automotive, and it's just showing that you can do so much with UEFN. Our team is around 15, so there's quite like a sizable studio working on these. And to give you a bit of a background about how I got started with this, it actually stems back from I was studying at IT University Copenhagen for software development. And what you see in the top left was actually my first ever Fortnite experience. It was built using the old Fortnite Creator, which has nothing to do with UEFN that you know today. And I quickly realized that when this released in December of 2018, that this was going to be quite huge. It's basically like basically like what happened with Minecraft is what I think is happening here with Fortnite. So I teamed up with a creator or a YouTuber called Mr. Craner. We made so many different games, actually myself playing there back in 2020. And we built games for, I think they were shown 150 million times on YouTube. So there was a huge audience for this. And that led to being recognized by Epic Games for sort of building these type of experiences. I'm not sure if any of you have seen the Fortnite World Cup in 2020, or 2021, but that was a huge moment for the whole industry and sort of like made me move from making YouTube videos around Fortnite to actually building bespoke experiences. And that experience cultivated in me founding Beyond Creative, where we work with over 40 plus various different brands. And yeah, it's super cool to do that. So Fortnite in numbers, very interesting. You've just seen a really cool talk around a lot of the technicalities when you're working in UEFN. This is publicly sourced data from Fortnite.gg. And effectively what you can see here is that this is the CCU number. So at any given point in time in Fortnite, there's around 600 to maybe, or 600,000 to maybe 3 million players at any given point in time. And what you see in the bottom right is basically how many of those are playing Fortnite as the traditional game that we know, and how many are playing creator-made islands, whether it be Lego islands or something completely else, your islands. But as I told you before, UEFN's been out for like 2 years now. It came out in March of 2023. So if you look at the chart over here, or the graph, you can kind of sense that around just here, that's when UEFN came out. And you can see that there's a lot more maps released every single month on that graph. It's not because it made it easier. It actually made it more difficult for us to make games the way that you guys probably know from Unreal Engine if you use that. But what it really did when UEFN came to Fortnite is that it unlocked the gates, it unlocked the doors for game developers across the industry using Unreal Engine to come in and build Fortnite islands. And I think that was very pivotal in the creator ecosystem. What you can also see is, or what I should also mention is, there's of course an upside as well in driving this traffic of creators. This is data that came out from Epic Games for reflecting on the year 2024. And what happened in that year alone was 200,000 Fortnite islands were published by 70,000 creators, over 5 billion hours spent from players worldwide. And there were like $350 million invested into this ecosystem, paid directly to creators. Now, I've also included the visual here because to no extent is this like an infinite money glitch or anything. Like it's actually a lot of hard work to get to the bottom bracket of this. It's just to show you that if you're building something, depending on the engagement, depending on how many players you drive in, there is a level of revenue that you can obtain from this. And if you're doing passion projects on the side or anything else, you may as well connect it to a greater ecosystem where you can get players and ultimately some revenue. Yeah, so I would love to show you what we did with the LEGO group. This was probably one of our most ambitious projects. It utilizes a lot of the same similar features to what was just shown before, but this is a little older than that, so you're going to get some new tech if you're building your own LEGO islands today. And I would love to show the video. So that's the project that we worked with the LEGO group on. There we go. So this is the core game loop. It's actually the same type of game that was just presented in the last, not by having any swords or anything, but it's a tycoon game. So the core game loop is that you harvest resources by just pickaxing a tree or pickaxing some rocks. They give you some resources. You can put them into building some buildings. Once you've built the buildings, they give you passive earnings in terms of gold stats, and you can spend that purchasing even more auto miners, so you can get even more resources. It's a very popular genre if you're going to make a Lego island by making a tycoon here. And for those of you that may play Fortnite or have done, you may recognize the location Tilted Towers. When we worked with the Lego group and looked into like how can we bring the brick to life through building, we thought of what better idea than to bring a POI that is so popular to life and one that Epic has destroyed maybe 4 or 5 times in its lifespan, and how can we really like rebuild that using Lego bricks. So that's the whole narrative here, and I think it's really cool. It's also a game that the Lego group has invested in and believed in, and that's why we have updated it throughout the year with a Halloween update, winter holiday update, and a very recent update as well. So it's nice to see that once they go live, it's not that they just exist and sit there. You can update them quite frequently as well. So what I said before is we're 15 people at our studio, I don't personally have a master's degree in game dev or anything like that. Half our studio doesn't. The other half does, and they have plenty of years. So what we've put here is actually some key benefits that those people that have come from other areas of the industry have found in UEFN. And of course, it's much faster development because it's building on top of an existing foundation. You get instantaneous cross-platform support. So you have it on mobile, you have it on your Switch, you have it on next-gen consoles, you have it on your PC. Also the heavy graphics engine and performance engine. There's an existing library. So UEFN has only been out for like 2 years, but Fortnite Creator has been out for 6. So in that time frame where we didn't have UEFN, where we couldn't import our own assets, that's a library of like 20,000 assets that you can utilize. And as they just mentioned in the previous talk, assets specifically designed for LEGO Islands is also expanding. So there's a great library of assets that you can use. And you can collaborate with a team using URC. And even the live session, you can collaborate with other people that may not have UEFN experience through Fortnite Creator, which doesn't use any verse programming. Other benefits that's maybe a bit more obvious is there's 100 million monthly active users across the whole ecosystem, or just short of. And there is an existing creator community of 70,000 people that you can either get inspired by or share inspiration with. There's a very extensive Epic Game support across all the different initiatives, whether it be LEGO Islands, Fortnite Islands, something third. And that's on Discord, it's in documentation, YouTube tutorials, live streams, fireside chats, etc. And something really cool that I'm sure Aidan's going to touch on is like IP licensing, something I as a creator really have valued growing up playing LEGO Star Wars, and now being able to make my own LEGO Island seem pretty crazy to me. So that's super cool. There's some other IPs as well that it's been worked on, but it's not something that I've seen anywhere else. So I just put into a table here as a comparison as well. The upper half I've just covered, but if we look at the bottom half, you'd see that there's a lower barrier of entry to UEFN more often than not. There's the existing audience. In terms of scale, there's 500 islands published every single day, according to the public data on Fortnite.gg, but also the one that Epic released for 2024. And according to the source, I found there's an estimated 25 games on Steam just in order for scale. So there's a lot more noise, if you will, in Fortnite, and there's a lot more creators, but that doesn't mean that you can't go through. Development time is also like 4 to 16 weeks compared to a couple of years. And you can actually do a lot in Fortnite just as a single creator or maybe as a small handful. So being a Fortnite creator, how do we think the future looks? And this is really the tweet that I reference quite a lot when I'm also talking to the team. It's a tweet by Tim Sweeney from early January last year. And it just states sort of like how, it's a reply to another tweet, you're free to find it. It just states how Unreal Engine 6 will build on top of something like Fortnite, something like UEFN, something like Verse. And I think if you're considering sort of like to test it out, try it out, build some stuff, I don't think it hurts at all, because it just, it could very likely be used on some future tech. So I think it's definitely worth your time to go in and play with. There's also a roadmap that you can see in the bottom right, where they go into what sort of new functionality that they're going to release. So my advice, being a Fortnite creator, if I were to build a game jam, that would be to always keep it simple. There's some really good existing devices that you can tap into that can get you started in seconds. And there's also some, the assets that I mentioned that can give you great progress. And I would always design the games for the first 30 seconds. Fortnite, whether you build LEGO Islands, whether you build Fortnite Islands, TMNT, whatever it is, you're battling for attention. So if players don't get hooked in the first 30 seconds, they're off to the next thing. So always make sure that your game is understood and clear before they drop off. And that doesn't need any long billboard text. It can be symbols, arrows, something more universal. And it's cool to be inspired by other platforms. What we see for the top 1% of Fortnite islands, many of them actually didn't originate on Fortnite. Many of them did too, but there are a good chunk that's coming off of inspiration from previous Minecraft servers, from previous Roblox games, and they're thriving very well in like a Fortnite translated way. So don't be afraid of taking inspiration, and then last but not least, have fun, because it's it's really fun to have the power to build whatever you want. So now I'm going to give it over to Aidan to show a technical demo.
Hello. Okay, good, it's working. I've got one slide. I'm not a big fan of slides, so I printed out my notes here. That's how old school I can be sometimes. Quick introduction. My name is Aidan McDu. I'm a senior gameplay programmer at Epic Games. I've been working on creative mode for about 7 years. So I worked on the initial prototype of creative mode. That was the one that took place on the Battle Royale island. I worked on the initial, you have islands and stuff. We call all of our things islands, by the way. That's what we call them. They're not experiences, they're islands. I've worked on all the different things you've seen up here. So I recently helped launch the Ballistic game mode that was co-developed in UEFN. That's a first-person tactical shooter that was made basically to show the kind of power, the AAA power of UEFN, what we can achieve there. And it also proves that we're dog-fooding our own tools. We're trying to make them better as we build them out. So it's a great example of that. And then most recently, we just launched the Walking Dead UGC collaboration. So now you can go and make a Walking Dead island if you want and use walkers. You can have the Lucille bat or the Lucille shotgun if you're a big fan of those kinds of things. But we're going to focus on LEGO for this demo. I'm going to jump in and show you guys a feature that made Fortnite famous, which is the battle bus. So we're going to build that in 20 minutes, and I can tell you that when we built it internally, it definitely took a lot longer than 20 minutes. So it'll be really nice that we can do that, and we can show off the power of how quickly you can build things in UEFN. So I can close this now, and we can fully commit to my melting laptop as we build in LEGO UGC. So here, I've got my grid island. I've kind of already created it just so I could show it off and get started. I've got a Fortnite game client here. So this is my little Peely. He's chilling out, just having a fun time. And I want to call out something really cool about UEFN for anybody who's got AAA game experience or has shipped a game before. Something that's really hard to do is to ship on all platforms. If you want to be on Switch and you want to be on mobile and PS5 and PS4, that can be a huge pain. It can be expensive. It can be hard to test that. When you're doing this launch session stuff, you can run this on any platform that we currently support in Fortnite. So I'm running it here on my local computer, but I could have brought my Switch and I could have played it on my Switch and I could have been playing it over here, running it on my phone, running it on a PS5. So that's a great way to make these tools accessible. That's part of why when you do push that launch session button, maybe it's a little slow because it's doing something called cooking in the cloud. So it's preparing the content you've added. It's dynamically adding it to the cloud and then you're downloading it into the game. It's a pretty cool system, but because of that, we're going to do all sorts of fancy stuff with UEFN. And you can add your own content, you can add your own meshes, import your own textures, all sorts of cool stuff. It's not just modding. It's a lot more than modding. It's making your own islands. So to kick this off, I do want to show kind of how do I get here? This is our project menu, where you can see all the different things that we provide in UEFN. So notably here, you can see we just added the Walking Dead universe, all sorts of different LEGO islands. If you were in the last talk, you saw those. We also have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Fall Guys, and Rocket Racing. So if you are considering using UEFN for your game jam, you can think to yourself that you don't have to be restricted to the Fortnite character. You can use the LEGO one, you can use the Fall Guys one, you could have a car be your main character if you wanted to. So really, the world is your oyster to figure out whatever you want to do and make whatever cool game you want to make. For now, we don't need to make a new project because I already have one open. So we're going to continue with this. This demo is going to feature only devices, and the idea behind that is if you're kind of uncomfortable with programming, or maybe you have team members who don't program as well, you don't need to program. You can still make awesome stuff without having to touch code at all. You can choose our awesome device system. Devices are basically little gameplay bytes that are all kind of sealed up into little things, and they have functions, and they have events you can broadcast to build things. So we're going to fixate and focus on that. So the first thing we need, as you can see, my Peely guy is just kind of hanging out here. We're going to put a spawner down. So if we just look for a spawn pad, you can find it if you put the right thing in. You want to have a player spawn there. Typing is going to be a problem. There we go. Player spawner. So I'm going to drag my player spawner in. Drag, and if you push F, you can zoom in. Lots of hotkeys are super useful. There's my LEGO-themed player spawner. This is where my player will spawn. If you don't have this, the character will by default drop from the sky. That kind of Battle Royale's default behavior is skydiving. So that's kind of the default behavior we adopted here. There's lots of ways to change that. Adding a player spawner is a great way to do it. Now, I said we want to build a battle bus simulator, right? So next we need to go through our library of content and find a battle bus. To do that, we can go right back to the content drawer, and we can stay in the Fortnite folder. You don't have to dig into any folders at all, and you can just look for bus. If I look into bus, oh my gosh, we got bushes, we got business half walls, we have lots of things. So let's refine that a little bit. I'm going to look for a party bus. This is the best looking battle bus that we have right now. And you can see here it is. It already exists. It's going to render those textures in a little bit. But we have access to all this content that was alluded to in the first part of the talk. This is all stuff that's free to use however we want. So I've got access to this awesome battle bus here. And this is the thing we're going to focus on animating and making seem really cool. This isn't a device on its own. It's just an asset. And if I wanted to search for other buses, like the regular battle bus, you can see that that'll show, oh, cute, there's a little Halloween battle bus. Let's wait for it to render. It's going to be really cute when it does. This is a little inflatable one. So maybe you wanted to have a really silly game where you, instead of having a full-size battle bus, you wanted to make something silly. This would be great for Fall Guys Islands. It's great for LEGO Islands. It's great for all sorts of stuff. But we have tons of assets to use. We're not going to use this one, but it's a great one to use if you wanted to. So next, we're going to actually make a button. And this button's going to be our instigator for everything. It's going to be a great starting point to say, I want to have functionality that works when a player does something. So we're going to build that by just searching for the handy little search button. We're just going to search for button. There it is. We got our button. So I'll just drag it in right in front of my player. I'll drag it up a little bit. And I'll turn it around because it always faces the wrong direction. There we go. There's our button. And now I'm really excited we have this big thing here because I can actually just point to it like, look. So these are our functions. These are really important. This is how you can code without coding. That's going to be really helpful for all your teammates. This button has this top part, which is the functions and the events. So the functions are the things that this thing can do. A button on its own doesn't do anything. Instead, the button gets interacted with, so other things will be able to bind to that event. So whenever a player interacts with the button, we'll go ahead and get an on-interact event. We could do things with that. Now from here, we want to start actually making something. So how could we go about making the bus move? That's the next step. We want to make this button make that bus move. Well, since we're in an editor, and this is basically a full-fledged Unreal editor, just with some functions removed and we're replacing them with better things as we build them out, we can actually use level sequences. So if I create a level sequence, we can call this our bus sequence. We can make a fancy way to make this thing move. So by clicking on that, it opens up this brand new window here. And you can use this to animate. You can use this to move things around. So this is kind of the key to making really high-quality islands in Fortnite is by using this sequence. So for example, I can click Add, and then I can do Actor, and I can do Bus. Bus. Car Party Bus. There we go. So now I've added the bus to this sequencer. And I'm going to make it animate really, really quickly. I think you're going to be impressed. So I'm going to drag it to the left. I'm going to click plus transform, and I'm going to move this all the way to the right. I'm going to grab this thing, and I'm going to drag it all the way to the right, and I'm going to click plus on the transform. And now you can see, oh, I missed my first keyframe. 1 second, sorry. Look at this. That's why we do it live, everybody. Move it back. Go back over here, bus. There we go. There's my plus this time. Now you can see I have an animation. So just like that, I've created the world-famous Fortnite Battle Bus feature of it flying around. Very easy. You can use it for all sorts of stuff. You could use this for level design. You can use it for pathing. You can use it for all sorts of things. And there's a lot more to the level sequence we won't dive into right now, but they're really, really powerful. But we have to make this play in-game. So how are we going to do that? Well, first I want to show off something kind of neat. So if I click End Game here, the game has kind of two states. There's a play time and there's an edit time. And all of the tools that are available in Fortnite Creative are actually fully available inside of the game client as you're editing. So I actually don't have to use the editor if I don't want to. There's my button. It's right there. I can see it. I can actually interact with it, and I can see what it's doing things. I don't have to go to the editor to do that. It's all available in-game. So you could have 15 other people join your project and actually iterate in the game client while you iterate in the editor. So you could have your level designers come in here, build stuff, hook up events while you're iterating on maybe some verse code or you're doing something else. This multi-user editing is really powerful. It's a great way to interact with people. And if you're just not comfortable with editors, you can just do it in game. And you can view all sorts of stuff. Even cooler is we support a feature called Live Edit. So if I actually go ahead and look for my bus or my button, let's do it with the bus. Let me quit this first. Quit the sequencer. And then I'm going to look at my bus now. I can take the phone, and I can click the bus, and I can put it down, and do you see that? It popped in on the editor. And then if I take the one here, and I move it around, you see that? It worked in the game. You don't have to push changes in order to get those changes. Lots of them happen automatically. If I go ahead and Alt and duplicate this here, you'll see There it is. I now have 2 buses. So everything that people are doing in the client, you can see in the editor, and everything you do in the editor, people can see in game. As long as you're in that edit time environment, it's a great way to iterate with people and build awesome levels together. I don't need those 2, so I'll go ahead and delete them. And again, I did that with a client. You don't have to do that with the game. I could do that on a Switch if I wanted to. It's pretty cool. But our goal here, again, we're trying to make a battle bus. So our goal here now is actually to make the sequence play. We have a great thing for that. It's just called the cinematic sequence device. Cinematic sequence device. I'll go ahead and drag that into the game. And then all I have to do is say, hey, sequence, play my sequence. And we're going to not do any of this stuff. We don't need any of that. But what we do want to do is say, hey, play function. We want to play. And you see I have a big list of things here. I actually don't like using that. I like to use a little eyedropper. The eyedropper lets you select a device in the world. It's a little small here, but I can select the button, and it automatically hooks it up, and I can see on Interact. So again, maybe you don't know what something's named. Maybe you forgot to name it. I didn't name my button anything, so luckily I was able to find it really easily. Now, this button will make that animation play. So I will say, I do have to push changes here. Level sequences themselves, that's a version of content. So I added that to the game, and there's no way for the game to know that it exists unless I put it into the cloud and download it. That's why Live Edit doesn't work for that particular asset, because it's brand new. So if you wanted to drag in an animation, or something you made in Maya, or something you modeled yourself, you'll have to push that push changes button. But everything else you can do via Live Edit. And we're going to test that in real time, because I plan on using Live Edit for the rest of the demo. So if it breaks for any reason, I'll have to eat my words. But it should be pretty good. So you'll see now it's doing that little edit mode spinner thing, which means it's actually preparing the content in the cloud. It's cooking it for the platforms. You'll see it live. There won't be any difference between what you see here and what you see on the published version of this. It's really the same thing as it is published, which is pretty cool. But we don't need to wait. We can actually keep working, right? We can just do that and keep iterating. So far, I just have this thing playing, so I'm not actually in the bus yet. And so how do you think you'd want to be in the bus? Any guesses on how we want to get to the bus? If you thought to yourself, oh, we should sit in a chair, you would have been correct. We're going to use one of my favorite devices, which is literally called the chair device. Once I can type C properly. There we go, C-H. Chair. I'm having big problems typing. Get there eventually. Device. There it is. I was not kidding. It is a literal chair. If you were to guess what this does, the answer is it lets you sit in it. That's its entire functionality, which is a lot stronger than you think. When you have something like a chair, you can take the player input and route it to a new location. So by sitting in a chair, like if you were a Power Ranger sitting in the chair of a mech, you could suddenly pilot a mech. So if you want to build something where you control other things, or you remove control from the player, the chair device is a fantastic way to do that. So all we're going to do is take the chair, put it into the bus, then put the player into the chair that's on the bus, move the bus, and we're done. Super easy. So how do we do that? Well, luckily, we can use a parent-child relationship of the chair to the bus, and it'll automatically move with it. So if I go ahead and just take the chair, you see it there, and I just drag it to the bus, it's now childed to that bus. And if I go here, and I go back to my project, and I look at the level sequence, and I watch it, you'll see, watch the chair. Woo! I did it, but you didn't see me animate the chair. I never touched it, right? All I did was reparent it. So now it just automatically works. So if you're trying to build a feature really quick, this is a huge feature. One that I frankly never used until I talked to a bunch of creators who use this feature all the time to do all sorts of powerful stuff. But you can see it's in the wrong spot. So now we need to make it in the bus. But luckily, because it is childed to the bus, it's very, very easy to do. All we have to do is go to the chair, and then go to our details, and just remove the location. And if I push F, you can see it's in the bus. Easy peasy. Okay, so now if we go back to here, and we want to end the game, and we'll start the game. Oh, did you see that? It was there. My chair was there. That's what I want to show off the live edit here. So you see, it's up there. My chair is there. My device is here. I'm very excited by this, by the way. It's exhilarating. So I go to the chair, and I scroll all the way down to seat player. That seats the player. I'm going to go ahead and add to that. I'm going to search for my button. And when I go to the button and I push on interact, it's now going to seat the player. But maybe I don't know if that happened. Maybe I don't know if that works, you know. Well, watch this. If I go ahead and I interact with the button here and I inspect it, oh, it worked. Live Edit says, look, I'm bound to the chair to seat player. And I could have authored that from the client. I didn't need to use the editor for that. I like to do both. I built a lot of these tools, so I kind of like the old school way of coming in and doing it manually from the game client. It's a little bit more visceral, I think. But good. So now we'll be seated in the chair. And if we start the game, we should get something very similar to what we want. So let's go ahead and try it out. Okay, ready? Ready? It's kind of working. You know, this is game development. This isn't quite what we want, right? Well, how can we deal with this? And we try to get out. Oh, we're all stuck in here, and that's not quite right, right? So what can we do to fix that? Well, you know, if you had to ship on your PS5 yourself, you'd have to cut a whole new build, and you'd mess it up. But we don't have to do that. We don't have to worry about any of that. We're going to do a few things to resolve this problem. First, let's go ahead and turn collision off on the bus. That's what's causing the camera to be a little bit wonky. It's what's causing us to get stuck in it when we hop out. So just turn collision off. Easy peasy. That's done. Next, we want that really AAA quality level of like the bus. You're really looking at it, right? You don't want to be first person. You want to really zoom out on it. So we're going to use another device called the Orbit camera. Orbit camera. I spelled it right that time. That's pretty impressive. This is one of many different camera devices we offer in UEFN that let you do all sorts of unique things in your game. We have a first-person camera in non-LEGO modes that will allow you to make first-person shooters. If you really want to make like a scary game or an action game, you can make a first-person shooter. We have a top-down camera, so if you wanted to make a twin-stick shooter, we have full support for that as well. You can really easily make a game that's Fortnite, but doesn't look or feel anything like Fortnite. I played a really awesome game. It was top down, had like 12 different weapons, had leveling up. It was very, very cool. I was very excited to see what people are making. Okay, but we have to hook this up. I can't get too excited, sorry. So now we have to actually set our Orbit camera up. How can we make it look good? Okay, so first let's go ahead and we're already on it, which is good. We want to actually fix a few settings. We want to make it bigger. We want it to orbit, right? So I already know that 800 is a good size. You can just trust me. It's a good size for this. You could move it around if you want and get a better idea. Like if we put it on the bus, then we slide it over. Kind of get the position right. You can see like, okay, at least it's still on. Okay. This is why you can't do depth perception in a 2D environment. There we go. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like about when we're around the bus, and we'll have control to look around and see the environment. So that's great. We want to remove add to player on start. We want this all to happen when we push the button to show that we can make it respond to stuff. And then we're going to scroll down, or back up, and give it a focus target override. This is like, what is the camera actually looking at? Well, we want it to look at the bus. So we're going to have it look at the car party bus. Perfect. And we're almost done, right? We just need to make it actually activate now. And so how do we do that? Luckily, we have those handy dandy user option functions again. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add it to the player. And now you might think, let's add it when we press the button, right? But I will tell you, as a game designer, we want to have more foresight than that. Because what's the problem with making it work on the button? Well, if you decide later to have the player seated by a different method, now everything's bound to the button. You'll have to go back and fix that. So this is a little jam insight for you guys. You should make it respond to the highest level thing, or like the last thing you'll do. So I'm actually going to have it respond to the chair when we get seated. This way, if I change that function to be done off of a countdown, or maybe in a different kind of metric, I can actually have this respond in multiple ways. It's not just a one-to-one tie-in to the button. So that's me trying to future-proof that a little bit. Okay, so now we're in the chair. We're adding the camera. We want to focus on the target as well, so we're also going to use the chair here. Chair. We're going to make sure that's when the player is seated. And then while we're here, should we do anything else? What would happen if we never remove it? Well, we'd be infinitely in the Orbit camera mode. Maybe I'll show that to you for fun, but it can be pretty interesting. We want to make sure we remove it too. So we're also going to hook back into the chair and say when the player exits. On player exited. Okay, and if I remembered everything, that should work, and we can go ahead and just end the game. And then our trusty live edit system will automatically show that working. So we can go verify that. I'm going to go fly over here. I'm going to go interact with this thing and check its events. Oh, on player seated, on player exited, on player seated. So it worked. We can verify that, and we can go ahead. You don't need to verify it. You can trust it. It should work. Famous last words, of course. I'm going to start the game, and we're going to hopefully be able to watch ourselves fly around the battle bus and hop out. OK. Woo, there we go. Look at that. And I can hop out, and I can land down there. See, there's one thing we missed, though, right? Because I had to manually leave, and when the bus got to the end, it didn't force me out. So luckily, we can just go right back to our chair, and we can say eject the player when the cinematic sequence finishes. And there we go. Now we should have a fully functioning, I don't want to move that, this guy. Now we have a fully functioning Battle Royale bus that will successfully let you eject onto the island and start doing combat or tycooning or whatever you want it to do. Oh gosh, I deleted that. Uh-oh. That's okay, we don't need it. There we go, okay, it's back. Whew. Start the game, and we should be good to go. 2, 1, ready? Woo! And now if I don't hop out, it should force me out when it's finished. Unless I forgot to do something, which, there we go, it did, yay! So we did it. We now successfully made a battle royale, and we'll get millions of players overnight, because that's the reality, right? That's really it for my live demo. I'm glad that it worked pretty well. I remembered all the steps. I didn't even have to use my little note sheet, so that's pretty good. But I'd love to take questions about any of this process or talk about it. I helped write a lot of this stuff. I know a lot of the technical details for much of it. So if you have any further questions or you want to know any more of the technical background, I'll be at the Epic booth. So feel free to just come over and ask me anything. You can say like, what does it mean to cook? What is the cloud platform? What is a PS5? I'll try my best to answer any of your questions that you might come and ask. So please feel free to come do that. And I think we have time for some Q&A if people want to ask questions. That's an invitation.
You don't bite, right?
No, I don't bite. Oh, yes?
Can you code?
Yes, so you can code. There's this cool thing called Verse. Verse is now this is a weird one for all of you learning programming. I assume some of you are. This is a college. Verse is a functional logic programming language. And if you look at the Wikipedia for that, there's like 3 sentences because those languages don't really exist. It's a cutting edge language that's trying to do a lot of things. It tries to make, I don't know how to describe it well, concurrency is a first party member of Verse. So if you know what concurrency is, it makes it easy to do in Verse, which is very exciting. But if I go ahead and you can see my Verse Explorer, if I right click here, I can add a new Verse file. And you can see this is what Verse kind of looks like. I don't want to use too many of these things here, but we can make a little Verse device, and just like that. I don't even know if I have Visual Studio Code installed on here. Let's find out. OK, there it is. I can open it, and we can start writing code. If I have it installed, which I might not. But yes, you can write code. Any other questions? OK, please come visit the Epic booth and the LEGO booth, and come ask questions, and we're happy to answer everything you have. Thank you so much.